Alex here with a legal nuts and bolts video on subjective versus objective. There have been a number of videos that I have released that talk about principles in the context of the court system that they emphasize what I'm about to cover in this video without me actually going into the problem. And I'm going to go ahead and address the problem in this video. The problem that some people, not all people, in fact, maybe not even half, probably, I wouldn't say it's rare, but I would say it's uncommon. It happens. There are some people who think that their subjective understanding of the legal system should control the outcome of their case. And what I mean by that is the way they feel something should be read, interpreted, the way they feel something should be applied is the way that it should be applied. And if not, then they need to be convinced otherwise. And the more extreme version of this problem is covered in my video, Sovereign Citizens. And even in that video, there's this guy who comments, and I can't remember if they filtered it or not, because YouTube does filter these things automatically. So you guys might not even see the guy, because I mean, as a channel owner, I'll see comments that I don't think other people can see because YouTube has filtered them. And anyway, in that video, even with all my disclaimers, and I should probably go ahead and go into those disclaimers, and I will momentarily, but even with all my disclaimers, the person still gets really upset. And of course, this is an extreme example, but as extreme as it is, it applies to even the most seemingly benign version of this, I guess you could call it a fallacy or a mistake that you might make. The idea that the whole system is voluntary and that you have to consent to it, or that you have to allow them to subject you to it. And in this particular example that I'm going to go into soon, it's going to be a discussion about jurisdiction and common law jurisdiction versus the state of Kentucky's jurisdiction, stuff like that. But this idea that everyone has this ability to refuse to participate in the court system as we know it, and everybody has this ability from the day they're born, and the only way you lose it is if you give it up. In other words, it can't be taken away from you. But the reality of the court system is that that's only one way in which the courts get jurisdiction over a citizen. One way happens to be that the citizen subjects themselves or submits themselves to the jurisdiction of the court. That's one way in which it happens. The second way is that it is imposed on someone. You can impose the court's jurisdiction on another person. And again, this is just one example, and this is the more extreme example, but this particular group, which is a sovereign citizen group, they feel that no, they can't impose their jurisdiction on you, and you have to submit to it. And what ends up happening is that they have this approach that, okay, fine, if you do not agree with me, you need to show me how I'm wrong. You need to explain to me how I'm wrong. And the system doesn't really care to do that. Number one, if it was really, if it really worked that way, then people could just refuse to understand forever and ever and ever, and never be subjected to the authority of the government. And number two, the court doesn't have time for it. The court doesn't have time to teach you how everything works and to wait and hope that you understand it and agree. They just don't. They're just going to show you the really, really quick way, which is to impose their power on you. And that's what's going to happen in this example, which I'm going to go into very shortly. But I really do want to emphasize the importance, before I go into this example, in understanding that the rubber is going to meet the road at some point. The power of the court is going to impact with your life, whether it's criminal proceedings, which is what this is the example I'm about to go into now, or you could even say child custody proceedings when the government decides you can't spend that much time with your child anymore, or divorce proceedings when the government decides half of your stuff's going to be taken away and given to your and of course, this is just a perspective of the person going through it. I mean, in reality, the court's just splitting everything up, so it's not really that they're taking anything away from you that your ex isn't already entitled to. But the idea is, at some point in this process, the government is going to reach in and forcefully do things to you. And that is, as I mentioned earlier, where the rubber meets the road. And that is why you can't just go into any of this with your head just stuffed into the sand thinking, If I don't see you, if I don't see what's going on, it's not happening. It's not real unless I agree that it's going to be forced on you. It's going to become very real against your will. So anyway, with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and run the video, and I'll be providing some comments throughout the video to sort of interject where appropriate in a way that kind of connects with this topic. And I'm hoping that this example, while extreme, I'm hoping that my viewers can draw analogies to it into other areas. And all I'm trying to do is get people to understand that it is important to learn how to read, understand, and apply the law in the way that everyone else recognizes it and expects it to be applied. You can't just kind of go, no, it's got to be my way or else. You have to really think, how do the judges read it? How do the attorneys read it? And more importantly, how does the appellate court read it? Because that is the court that can twist your judge's arm. That is the court that can tell your judge, nope, you're wrong, reversed, remanded, fix it. You know, at the end of the road, you can perceive the law to be whatever you want it to be. But if that appellate court isn't going to do something about it, what does it matter? Because your car's been taken from you. Your bank account's been hacked. Your kids have been taken from you. You've been locked in a cell. And you have all of these feelings as to how it should have gone, but at the end of the road, you're sitting in a cell. So what does it matter? The rubber has to meet the road at some point, and you have to connect this from your subjective understanding of how things work to reality. You have to root yourself in reality, because if you don't, reality is going to just slap you in the face. So let's go ahead and get started.
Keisha Johnson.
So what's happened here is the inmate has passed a bundle of papers up to the judge. These papers are very common among sovereign citizen movements, sovereign citizen organizations, and the paperwork is, my understanding is that it is created by these, I guess you can call them common law chapters or common law organizations. Some of them even proclaim themselves to be like legitimate governments. And to a judge, this just looks like paperwork that's been invented out of thin air. IDs, court orders, instructions, directives.
Yeah, Keisha Johnson. Come on up here, ma'am. No, you got to come stand at this podium.
Okay, so in this case, the inmate believes that if she approaches the bench, she is going to submit herself to the jurisdiction of the court. This is a common superstition that these organizations have. The gist of it is that you have a certain array of rights. Everyone has these rights when they're born, and that you lose those rights not because they are taken from you, but because you do certain things that causes you to waive them. And the superstitions vary wildly from taking an income tax refund to applying for food stamps. And in this particular case, it appears that the inmate believes that by approaching the podium, she is waiving her rights and consenting or submitting herself to the jurisdiction of the court.
The laws of the state of Kentucky.
It's interesting here because some of the judges that have to deal with these types of litigants get really frustrated really quickly and will, they just don't show a whole lot of patience. This one seems to be showing some patience. He answered her question that, you know, she is, or this court's operating under the laws of Kentucky, and she's going to go ahead and try and opt out. Basically, she's going to try and say that she is not subject to those laws. She's exempt. She doesn't have to follow them.
Come up here and stand at this podium. I have to get you on the record so that people, so that we can see you with your argument.
Okay, well, for on the record, I reserve my right to
No. All right. So you want to represent yourself. Is that true, Ms. Johnson?
Actually, I would like to know what law you guys operate
Okay,
in court.
well, Ms. Johnson, I really don't want to create some big scene.
Okay, well,
Hang on for a second. I do. I do not want to lock you up, but I may very well have to. I need for you to come up here and stand at this podium. No, you cannot. No, you cannot. You have to come up here and stand at this podium.
Okay, can you put it on the record that I'm reserving my rights as I cross this bench?
Yes.
And here it's a little bit more specific. She's reserving her right to not cross the bench, and he's conceding it. He says, sure, it's in the record. You are being forced to come to the podium, and this isn't going to really make her happy. I think she's probably still suspicious. She's probably imagining that it doesn't matter that he is stating on the record that she's reserving a right, that somehow, some way, she's going to be deprived of her ability to stay within what she perceives to be the common law realm. And even with him saying, yeah, it's on the record, if you approach the bench, they will know that you've objected and all that, she's still going to refuse to approach.
What, Ms. Johnson? I need to know what you're doing, Ms. Johnson. I need you to stand at this podium. All right, next up, Chris.
Okay, and here is this statement, show me the law. This is apparently some kind of, I guess you could call it a battle cry, or like a, some people say it's a meme, other people say it's like the, just a rule that they go by. You know, you do not have to abide by anything that the court says unless they show you the law. But the problem with this way of thinking is it requires you to agree to it, and it's the mentality of this type of person. They're still stuck in this mode that whatever it is that's about to happen to them, they have to agree to. People have to explain it to them. People have to show them, and if they do not agree to it, then they are not subjected to it. But that's not how the legal system works. Law is force. They are going to force this person to do something based on the laws. Just because they don't understand how it works, just because somebody isn't showing it to them, doesn't mean that somebody isn't going to grab hold of them physically and shove them in a cell.
All right. Chris? Chris? Go ahead and lock her up. Go ahead and take her into custody. Just sit over there. Nothing's going to happen.
What is this for? Are you guys watching this? Under the Constitution, you have no right. No right for that.
Yeah, I'm not finished with her yet.
What are her charges? I'm sorry, she's not. Like her and abusing her. No, I know.
You know, some people might think that these inmates are just like going over the top, or they're faking it, or, you know, it's histrionics. And I don't think so. I don't think that those screams and shrieks are them faking it. I really think that they never thought this would happen to them. They came in so convinced that their subjective understanding of reality was going to control what happened. And I think they started to freak out and scream because it was hitting them. Like, it shocked them. Wait a minute. This isn't supposed to happen, and it's happening. And I think that that's going to be one of the reasons why so many people just implode when they, you know, go through the system, because in their head, they're so convinced that something is going to happen a certain way, and then they come out on the other end and they're like, what just happened to me? It's a shock. It's, you know, with some people, it's unnerving. With other people, it's utterly terrifying. And it's just one of the important things when you start to interact with the legal system. You have to really plug yourself in to the system and understand it, because if you don't, bad things are going to happen to you, and they're going to catch you off guard. They're going to shock you, and you're going to react in ways that are scary to not just yourself, but other people who are observing. So.
All right.
What are her charges? I'm sorry.
Come up here and stand at this podium, Miss Johnson.
I'm sitting
Okay, so you're refusing to come here and stand in front of the bench. Is that true?
No, I reserve my rights, correct?
And that's fine, but come up here and stand at this podium.
And here we go again. There's another inmate who has the same exact idea as the previous.
All right, first I want to talk about you and your case. Anyway, you're charged with possession of marijuana, tampering with physical evidence, and possession of drug paraphernalia.
I don't understand that.
All right. Well, you're charged with illegally possessing marijuana. You are charged with tampering with physical evidence and possession of drug paraphernalia.
I don't understand any of the charges.
Well, there's not a whole lot more. There's not a whole lot more I can do to try to explain to you.
Okay, let's start here. Can you guys prove jurisdiction? Prove jurisdiction, because I come in under common law. Prove your jurisdiction, that you have jurisdiction over me. Prove jurisdiction. A court cannot proceed until you guys prove jurisdiction. Show me your jurisdiction. Show me your law.
All right. All of our laws are codified in the Kentucky Revised Statute.
Show me jurisdiction. Show me law.
This is really where the rubber is about to meet the roads, both in the title of this video and also in reality for this inmate. This video covers the importance of understanding that your subjective perception of what the law is or how it should be applied is not going to control these cases.
Hey, there you go.
Okay, that doesn't prove that you have jurisdiction.
Okay, so what else? Now, there's a simple way for me to prove jurisdiction to you, and that would be for me to ask the deputy to take you into custody.
Ultimately, that's what it is. The court can impose jurisdiction on you and physically seize you and shove you in a cell.
I have absolute confidence that I have jurisdiction.
I don't have any formal charges, like you take me.
You do have formal charges.
Formal charges would be a complaint against me and another individual.
No, it doesn't have. I don't need another individual.
That's a citation, correct?
Okay.
That's not formal
All right.
charges.
All right. So, what do you want to do about your case today?
Prove jurisdiction to me.
I don't have to prove jurisdiction
Yes,
to you.
do. In
All
the
right.
law, it
I'm going to
says
prove
you have
jurisdiction to you right now. I'm going to ask the deputy to go ahead and take you into custody.
Under what charges?
Under
what charges?
you are disrupting.
And here you can literally see the disconnect between how they think things work and how things actually work. Because even when he says she's going to be remanded into custody, she continues to try to debate him while people are physically grabbing hold of her and throwing her to the ground. It's like this is a...
My court. I don't know where these people are.
Stop resisting. Stop resisting. Stop resisting.
I don't know.
Stop resisting. Now come on up.
All right, we're going to pass her case to tomorrow.
You guys have been treated against law under common law, under the United States Constitution. And if they keep doing this, then let us be placed.
As with all my previous videos, if you have any questions or comments, feel free to post them down in the comments below, and I will see you guys next time.